Fascists are coming! The fascists are coming! It's just like 1933 all over again. Watch out, Ethiopia! The Italians are coming to get you!
Oh, did the leftists get elected?
No.
Oh.
No, a right-wing party in Italy has won the election as part of a coalition with other centre-right and right-wing parties, it seems.
Right, so the train's going to be really slow.
Because only the leftists. Be on time.
Well, the only leftists could make them run on time.
Well, that's true. Well, it seems that Italy's foremost right-wing party, the Brothers of Italy, seem to have won as part of their coalition with the other parties, League and goodness, I've forgotten the name of. I'll get to it later. They have won the election and are setting up to form their own government with Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni with Giorgia Meloni set to be the new Prime Minister, the first ever female Prime Minister of Italy. And people are freaking out, throwing around the fascist word, etc., 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 saying that this is going to cause the end of democracy, the fall of the European Union, fingers crossed, and generally decrying it as the end of the world. So let's take a look and see if that is true. What do the Brothers of Italy believe? And are they really as radical and far right as they are being made out to be, or in fact are they containment, as some others are saying? I guess we'll find out. But before we go any further, we do have a book club from last year, Zeev Sternhell's Neither Right Nor Left, which gives a good historical overview of the intellectual and philosophical foundations that led to the creation of the fascist ideology in the early 20th century. And he traces it back to Georges Sorel in late 19th century France in his advocacy of political violence as a legitimate form of democracy. So if you want to check that out, you can find it on the website, and it might be able to help you improve your understanding of what this vastly misunderstood ideology actually is. So let's move on. So Italy's far right on course to win election, according to BBC a few hours ago, and I believe that they have won the election, because if you scroll down a little bit here, we can see a graph of the vote share of each of these, and we can see Brothers of Italy have got 26.18%, and they were aligned with League and Forza Italia. So overall, they come up to about 44% of the votes, and they'll be able, as part of that coalition, to form their own government. The Democratic Party were centre-left, and I don't think they had a coalition. If they did, it was with the Greens in the third poll, and as you can tell, they were nowhere near close enough to being able to to beat the Brothers of Italy.
No, ironically, the Greens are in the red.
It seems so. It seems so.
That was very Italian of me. Hey, cooking a pizza.
Ms. Meloni is widely expected to form Italy's most right-wing government since World War II, according to this BBC article, which means any remote variant of right-wing is the first time since World War II. Because you see this especially in countries like Germany and Italy, which were sadly on the bad side of the mid-century conflict, saying that, since then they've basically not been allowed to have right-wing governments at all.
But the Nazis and the fascists weren't even right-wing.
So that is certainly very
much. They wore the veneer
of
traditionalism, but they ultimately demolished their own nation, and I don't think that
Hitler was a nihilistic revolutionary who wouldn't really fit within the right wing, other than his appeals to a national identity.
Yeah, he's a race socialist. No, thank you.
Beyond that, they've just been associated with the right wing. It seems to me to be for political expediency for the victories that the left has taken since the mid-century, and as a result, Germany and Italy and other countries have basically had the right wing outright banned, which we will see as we get further along. But no, this is the first time they've had a remotely right-wing government since the beginning. So that will alarm, says the BBC, much of Europe, as Italy is the EU's third biggest economy. What does this have to do with their success? Having a right-wing government, does that mean that they're going to blow up the economy? Because typically it's the other way around.
Well, it's ultimately the admission that the European Union is a hegemonic left-wing project.
Well,
so
thank you for just admitting to anybody paying attention by now. And it's also just another way to try and smear them in any way possible. However, speaking after the vote, Ms. Meloni said that her Brothers of Italy party would govern for everyone and would not betray the people's trust. Italians have sent a clear message in favour of a right-wing government led by Brothers of Italy, saying while she was also holding up a sign saying, "Thank you, Italy." She's set to win 26% of the vote based on the provisional results. Her right-wing alliance, which also includes Matteo Salvini's far-right League and former PM Silvio Berlusconi's centre-right Forza Italia, will take control of the Senate and the Chamber of Deputies with around 44% of the vote, as I said.
Berlusconi's back. Bunga Bunga Man's back.
Yes, Berlusconi is back as part of this coalition.
More Bunga Bunga parties.
Yes. Her own party's democratic success in the vote disguised the fact that her allies performed poorly. Not poorly enough, though, it seems. Not as poorly as the Democratic Party's allies. Salvini's party slipping below 9%. You know, they're just trying to
cope.
They're just trying to cope here. And they're also saying, 4 years ago, Brothers of Italy only won little more than 4% of the vote, but this time benefited from staying out of the national unity government that collapsed in July. And this seems to just be another symptom of Italy having a very unstable political landscape. And this, to me, doesn't sound like a bad thing. It's pretty meteoric rise for them, to be fair. I mean, fair play to them.
Aren't they just saying, how dare they benefit from left-wing failures?
Well, I don't think the Unity Party was even strictly left-wing failures, although it did come about. I think the Forza Italia and League had a coalition in 2018 when they won the election, and then for whatever reason, one of them, possibly League, dropped out in last year, and then they formed a coalition with the Democratic Party, and it all came crashing down from there. That's what I know from a quick cursory glance at some of the information available regarding it. So if I've got that wrong, Italians watching, I'm sorry. And the decision on who becomes Italy's next leader is up to the president, Sergio Mattarella, and that will take time. Although Giorgia Meloni has worked hard to soften her image, emphasising her support for Ukraine and diluting anti-EU rhetoric, she leads a party rooted in a post-war movement that rose out of dictator Benito Mussolini's fascists, and I'll examine that claim in just a little bit. Earlier this year, she outlined her priorities in a raucous speech to Spain's far-right Vox party. Yes to the natural family, no to the LGBT lobby, yes to sexual identity, no to gender ideology, no to Islamist violence, yes to secure borders, no to mass migration, no to big international finance, no to the bureaucrats of Brussels, which sounds pretty great to me.
Do they accept foreign members?
I mean, you might have to try and worm your way in there, Connor, but if this is... I'm sorry to say, if this is what passes for fascist nowadays, then I'm going to need to start shining my black boots and get my armbands ready, because honestly, that just sounds pretty reasonable. But once again, it's just another example of how anything remotely to the right of Stalin and Mao, even the sorts of ideologies that they would put forward, because let's be honest, no to the LGBT lobby is something that Stalin would absolutely agree with.
Yeah, if you're LGBT, you can't reproduce, therefore you're not doing your duty in making workers for the regime, comrade.
Yes, anything to the right of Drag Queen Story Hour is now considered fascist. And once again, if that's the standard for entry, then sign me up, sad to say. And the centre-left alliance was a long way behind the right with 26% of the vote, and Democratic Party figure Deborah Serracchiani, I assume I pronounced that right, said it was a sad evening for Italy. The right has the majority in Parliament, but not in the country, she insisted, which is the Italian Corbyn right there. We won the election.
Yeah, we won the argument, but not the election.
We won the argument, I swear. Italy is a founding father of the European Union and as a member to NATO, and Ms. Meloni's rhetoric on the EU places her close to Hungary's nationalist leader, Viktor Orban, who she supposedly already has a good relationship with. Which, once again, this is just selling me to these people.
I have actually multiple times looked to see if I can do the commute in from Hungary every day, because he's currently paying you to have children.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's giving massive tax breaks to families. And I think you don't have to pay any income tax if you're under 25.
Oh,
yeah.
Damn it.
And Budapest looks beautiful. So.
You're making me very jealous of Hungary right now.
Well, all the Leicester riots means that we could be refugees to Hungary by the end of the year.
But beyond all of that, which all sounds very good so far, who are the Brothers of Italy, and what is their background that connects them to Benito Mussolini's fascist party? Well, happily, Callum sent me this wonderful cheat sheet, which is from a website called The Local, which is Italy's news in English. Thank you very much for providing all of this information for me. And I'll just go through some of the info. So this is the connection to the Mussolini's fascists, okay? And tell me if this sounds strenuous or not, okay?
Is it 7 degrees of separation level?
The Brothers of Italy was formed in 2012, but traces its origins back to the end of World War II. In 1946, a group of Mussolini's allies, most of whom had been members of the Italian Social Republic, the final incarnation of Mussolini's Italian fascist regime, founded the neo-fascist Italian social movement, or known as the MSI. In 1995, the MSI merged with more right-wing, mainstream right-wing elements to become the National Alliance, also known as the AN, which publicly distanced themselves from fascism. AN was then absorbed into Berlusconi's centre-right People of Freedom Party in 2009, and then in 2012, a breakaway group formed mainly of former AN leaders, including current FDL leader Giorgia Meloni, left to found the Brothers of Italy.
That was such a stretch. It sounded like my girlfriend telling me a story. It was like, oh, you know this person who knew this person who you met once at a party once, and this is, yeah, they did something really bad.
Yeah,
like,
they're basically an offshoot of a merger of an offshoot of an offshoot.
So, let me get this straight. The Democrats had a big switch, so that exculpates them from being on the wrong side of the Civil War and starting the KKK and that, right? Even though they kept the same name and the same territories and still have discriminatory black policies. And they're A-okay. But a party who, God, what, about 80 years ago now, actively denounced fascism, is right-wing and not, therefore, socialist, and dropped the socialist part of their name, and has changed identity so many times, is actually Mussolini resurrected.
Exactly.
Right, okay, that's interesting.
Yes, it's the kind of connection, when you put it like that and just say, oh, they're an offshoot of a merger or an offshoot of an offshoot, I'm sure you could tie literally every political party operating in Italy right now to Mussolini.
Yeah, don't throw your back out with that reach.
Yes. So the whole derives from Mussolini's party is a completely ridiculous claim. These origins and the fact that the Brothers of Italy espouses far-right ideologies while rejecting the label of fascism means the party is often described by news outlets, including this one, as post-fascist, which means that you are just name-calling. This is incredibly petty name-calling.
Wait, post-fascist? So you're not fascist then?
Yes.
That's like saying postmodern is modern.
Well, all post-fascist means is that you're conservative, but we want to call you a name anyway.
Yep.
There you go. And so what is it that they espouse? Obviously, we got a little hint of that in the speech that I read a bit from. So that ideology is labelled here as anti-immigrant, anti-gay marriage, pro the traditional family unit, with leader Giorgia Meloni promoting a public image of herself as a mother, woman, Christian, I think she's Catholic, unsurprisingly, given Italian, whose mission is to defend God, country, and family. Many of the party's policies are pro-natalist and aimed at combating Italy's plummeting birth rate, which Meloni has described as a true emergency. They include increased child benefits, reducing VAT rates on nappies, baby bottles, and formula, free childcare provision, and incentivising employers to hire new mothers. That one, at the end, does seem a little bit off topic, because if you want traditional family roles and such, you want mothers staying in the home raising the children.
Yeah, you don't want free childcare provision because you don't want to that's literally what Plato and then Marx tried to do in breaking up the nuclear family. So you offload raising your child onto someone else.
So there are contradictions in the methods taken, but I think we can all appreciate at the very least that their aims seem to be pointing in the right direction.
Yeah, I'll get a holiday home in Rome.
Certainly better than a lot of what we get over here.
Yeah.
And in the lead up to the 2022 elections, Meloni has posted repeatedly on her social media accounts calling for a naval blockade to put an end to illegal departures to Italy, though it's unclear what form this would take. I think it would take the form of a naval blockade, shockingly enough. Whoever wrote this article. The party also wants to create offshore hotspots to process asylum applications outside the EU.
Well, I'm not sure what form this would take. She's literally provided you an image.
Here's a nice image of what it would look like.
Yeah.
She's also going for the Rwanda plan because, as I said, she wants to create hotspots offshore to process asylum applications outside the EU. So Rwanda's going to be a hotbed of immigration soon.
So many doctors, lawyers, engineers.
Yeah, are you ready for cultural enrichments, Rwandans? Meloni has furiously denied that Brothers of Italy is fascist, obviously, because they're obviously not. This is despite the fact that FDL recently decided to keep the tricolour flame, the original symbol of the MSI, in its logo, and up until 2017, the logo also featured the letters MSI. A 2021 undercover investigation by the Italian news outlet Fanpage showed footage of, among other things, various FDL leaders trading fascist jokes and Roman salutes. No one's ever made edgy jokes in their free time in private.
Well, also, it's not jokes about fascism, it's fascist jokes. And I like the idea that the fascists were famous for their jokes.
They were.
You could, of course, mock Mussolini to his face, and he wasn't insecure about that at all.
Mussolini was well known for his classic stand-up routines.
Yeah, great sense of humour, that guy.
Like, what they always cut out of Hitler's speeches is the enormous rounds of laughter that those crowds...
Oh, yeah, the Jews were all in on the joke, I'm sure.
Yeah, and Maloney started her career as a teenage activist in the youth wing of MSI in 2006 as an MP for the National Alliance. She told a reporter in an interview for Corriere magazine that she had a serene relationship with fascism as a chapter in Italy's history, adding Mussolini made several mistakes. Historically, he also produced a lot, but this does not save him. 2 years later, at 31, she was named Minister for Youth in Silvio Berlusconi's government, and supposedly she was the youngest minister in Italian history. Now, what this article from the Local is trying to make it seem is that means that she is a fascist. What this tells me is that she doesn't care if people are going to be labelling things fascist or not. She's like, it happened, let's move on.
But she literally says this doesn't save him. So it's like saying, oh yeah, you can say he made the trains run on time, but he was still an authoritarian dictator, so I don't worship him. And it's like, yeah, that's a completely reasonable thing to say.
Yeah, and she's said, I mean, at least the trains did run on time after all.
It's the same joke as, mid-century German man was a great artist, but, the murders were kind of a problem.
And he wasn't a great artist, for one.
Some of the paintings are all right.
Some of his paintings look kind of nice aesthetically, but when you look at the form, like, he's got buildings with windows sinking into the ground.
I mean, he was a much better artist than I could be, but also I didn't murder people, so it's a low bar.
Not yet.
It's an in-joke in the office.
Maloney has recently sought to distance herself from earlier comments, saying the FDL has no room for nostalgic attitudes, and asserts in her video message that the Italian right has handed fascism over to history for decades now. So basically what she's saying is that they've consistently let themselves be bullied into ineffectiveness by letting others use the fascist beating stick as a way to make their political opponents neutered, and they're just not going to pay attention to it anymore. They're just going to move past and do what they need to. And and I got a quote here from their manifesto. We want to defend our identity and our Greek, Roman and Christian roots from the ongoing process of Islamization and from the mondialist ideology that would deny national affiliations and the very existence of European peoples. Pretty based.
Sure, European peoples is a bit nebulous, because...
Well, I think it's more in reference to, like, for instance, Carl and Callum recently did that hangout where they're covering Europe's only indigenous people.
Yes, of course, they're trying to undermine the idea that Germans are native to Germany and we are native to our country.
They're trying to undermine any national identity unique to a European nation.
Yeah, it's indigenous is only that which American leftists see as close to the Native Americans or American Indians.
Well, yeah.
Rather.
What is it? They just look like savages. That means that they were indigenous.
Yeah.
No, that's not how that works. Indigenous people can become prosperous and wealthy
and invent the wheel.
Well, some of them can.
Anyway,
but let's take a look, because I read out some of the stuff where she was saying no to the LGBT, no, yes to sexual identity, and it's only one thing reading that out loud.
Right.
Let's hear how she delivers it, and just be warned, I think John has turned the volume down a little bit on this, but it might still be a bit loud, so be warned if you're watching this at home, and it will all be in Italian, but I've already read the quote, so you can figure it out for yourself what she's saying. I might need to turn my own volume up, but I'm scared.
Sí a la familia natural. No a los lobby LGBT. Sí a la identidad sexual. No a la ideología de género. Sí a la cultura de la vida. No al abismo de la muerte. Sí a la universalidad de la cruz. No a la violencia islamista. Sí a fronteras seguras. No a la inmigración masiva. Sí al trabajo de nuestros ciudadanos, no a las grandes finanzas internacionales, sí a la soberanía de los pueblos, no a las burócratas de Bruselas, y sí a nuestra civilización, y no a quienes quieren destruirlo.
Goal!
Yeah, she was delivering that in Vox in Spain, and I think the funny thing is that the verve and the manner at which she said all of that is quite inspiring, but seeing that, I can see where some are coming up with the comparisons. That finger wagging.
Yeah, there's gonna be so many side by sides by leftists, and they always quote Star Wars. They're just gonna say, "Oh, this is how democracy dies," with thunderous applause, and it's like, okay.
All right. This is how democracy dies, through democratic voting and processes. Yes.
No, democracy is cringe.
I was going to say, that just proves how pathetic democracy is, surely. And I got this other one, which is an inspiring speech, a genuinely inspiring speech as well, actually. And I would, it's all in Italian, but there are subtitles, so I'll read it out as it goes along. If we can play this. This is about what we are doing here today.
A monte c'è quella che ci facciamo oggi. Perché la famiglia è un nemico?
Why is the family an
Perché la
enemy?
famiglia
Why is
fa
the
così
family so
paura?
frightening?
C'è una risposta
There
unica
is a
per
single
tutte queste
answer to
domande.
all these questions.
Perché ci definisce,
Because it
perché è la nostra
defines us, because
identità.
it defines our
Perché
identity.
tutto quello che
Because
ci
everything
definisce in
that
questo
defines us is
tempo
now
è
an
un
enemy.
nemico. Per chi
For
vorrebbe
those
che
who
non
would like
avessimo più
us to no
un'identità
longer
e che
have an
fossimo
identity
solamente
and to simply
schiavi,
be perfect
consumatori perfetti.
consumer slaves.
E allora è sotto
And
attacco
so they
l'identità
attack national
nazionale,
identity and they
è sotto
attack
attacco
religious
l'identità religiosa,
identity.
è sotto attacco
They
l'identità
attack
di
gender
genere, è
identity,
sotto
they
attacco
attack
l'identità
family
familiare.
identity.
Non devo
I
potermi
can't define
definire
myself as Italian,
italiana,
Christian,
cristiana,
woman, mother, no.
donna, madre, no. Io devo essere
I
cittadino
must be
X,
citizen
genere
X,
X,
gender X,
genitore
parent
1,
1,
genitore
parent 2.
2,
I
devo
must be a
essere un
number.
numero. Perché quando sarò
Because
solamente
when
un
I am only a
numero,
number,
quando
when
non
I
avrò
no
più
longer have an
un'identità, quando
identity
non
or
avrò più
roots,
radici, beh allora sarò
then I will be the
lo schiavo
perfect slave at
perfetto
the
in
mercy
balia
of
della
financial
grande speculazione
speculators.
finanziaria. Il
The
consumatore
perfect
perfetto.
consumer. That's
Wow.
pretty brilliant.
That's based.
That's a
so
pretty
it's
hard line against the globalist agenda. Right
it's
there.
articulating how the family is a bulwark against the sort of WEF managerial state that wants you to be in the pod and eat the bugs and just consume endlessly but not actually own anything. That's a wow, I like that. Okay.
Later in that speech, she even quotes Chesterton.
Really?
Yes, when she says, fires will be kindled to testify that 2 and 2 make 4, swords will be drawn to prove that leaves are green in summer. And she's fiery, but she's fighting for the things that her country believes in. And with statements like that, it sounds as though she's willing to actually put up a fight for them.
Well, we actually do have a deficit of conservative thinkers in the political realm, so it's nice that someone's well-read enough, because that's what people thought Boris was, and he turned out to be an utter traitor. So
Yes.
I hope for our Italian brethren
Good
that your politicians are
libertarian Boris.
much better. Yeah, thanks for the house arrest.
And she has said previously quite based things as well, where her party, the Conservatives, proposed a law to outright ban communism and Islamism in Italy.
Do it!
Under a law that already exists, which bans fascism in Italy. So they're basically just pointing at communism and going, communism, fascism, what's the difference, guys?
Well,
Might as well ban
true.
both of them.
This
Come
is
on,
what-
if we're going to be consistent.
This is what we said in our book club of Michael Knowles' Speechless. There should be an anti-suicide clause in any constitution of any country that says if you're trying to espouse an ideology which undermines the protections you are afforded by our nation, then sorry, bye, live somewhere else. It's the Hopper thing of you cannot act antithetical to a self-associative community and still think you should be respected within the bounds of that community. Goodbye.
Yeah, either accept complete social separation from everybody else or get out.
Yep.
Be miserable or leave and go somewhere where, you can find a communist commune somewhere. It'll collapse and prove a nice example for the rest of us.
Yeah, and if you're apologetic enough, we might treat you like the prodigal son, and you might come back and learn the error of your ways. But until then, goodbye, you're annoying.
Yeah, they also recently got into an argument before the election came about over an episode of Peppa Pig that was going to be airing over in Italy, where there was going to be a character with 2 mothers.
Oh, yeah, I've seen this.
If we go to the next one, where it's basically just saying no lessy pigs for us, thanks. And people could say that this is petty, but obviously what they're doing is they're trying to defend their more traditional values and say, hold up.
No pork without sausage.
We've seen what's going on over here. We've seen your drag queen story hour. This is a slippery slope that you're leading us on, and it shouldn't be for children. So, that's one thing. And then the European Union's chairwoman, Ursula von der Leyen, delivered a veiled warning to Italy's right wing, stating that my approach is whatever democratic government is willing to work with us, we're working together. But if things go in a difficult direction, I've spoken about Hungary and Poland, we have tools.
This is quite,
Seems
again,
like a threat.
she's a lunatic and she should know better because she spent years in exile over in London hiding from the Biden mine-offs. So she should actually hate communism, but she doesn't.
But she doesn't. Well, no. What she recognised was a powerful tool that she could use against her own enemies. Is sadly what happens with a lot of people. But as far as I'm concerned, they've got the regime frightened, and this is what has to be done to secure control of our nations: is to frighten and eventually separate from the regime. And I don't want to big up Maloney too much because she has said a lot of things in recent interviews as well that do seem to be a little soft line on the EU, a little soft line on, say, sanctions in Russia, etc., like this. She is still spouting some globalist talking points. My hope, you can call this cope if you want, is that she is trying to appease the right people while she's still getting into a position of power, and then we'll flip the switch. But even if she does just turn out to be a globalist shill slightly to the right of most others, it's still a step in the right direction.
Yep.
She's claimed that she's going to be a right-wing Tony Blair, and as far as I'm concerned, good. That just means that she'd be effective. As much as we do hate Tony Blair, and as much as he isn't based, Carl, he did get stuff done.
Yeah, if she
Bad
knows how
stuff,
to use
but he got it
power
done.
correctly in the preferential interest of her citizens, which she is beholden to, good. If she's just going to be an ineffectual fish, no.
Yeah, and Nick, our very own Nick Dixon, put it down quite well, where he said, I don't know much about Maloney, but it is quite funny that a democratically elected leader is essentially being called fascist by the unelected German president of a European superstate.
Yep.
Excellent point, and that's gone up 3,000 likes since I saw it earlier this morning.
Good man.
So nice one for you, Nick. And just a reminder as well that this has happened very, very soon after Sweden also went based, when the Sweden Democrats, which is a strange name for them, but you know, you've got to have democracy in there somewhere or people think you're evil, won a recent election as part of another coalition where they want to do such evil neo-Nazi fascist things like deporting illegal immigrants.
Is that North F Swede?
It certainly looks like it. He's having a good time, whoever he is. So this all sounds good so far, but let's not rest on our laurels. We need to wait and see what actually happens here and see if the policies that they're trying to put forward and the things that they're trying to, the traditions and cultures that these people are trying to promote are going to be strengthened by the presence of these people in governments across the EU. But at the very least, I think we can all agree this is a good step in a right direction.
We can only hope for our pasta-eating brethren.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as the Contemplation series, this one on what do the elite actually want. You want to follow what else Josh is putting out, you can follow him on Getter at Josh_firm on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.